Well, hey everybody. So I am beyond excited about this impromptu training that we're going to have. After we had our opportunity Zoom last night, Russ had come on and he had talked about the training that he's in. And this is a running joke with my team and my husband as well. So anytime we go on trips, anytime we're at events, and in between sessions, or if it's just like a networking thing, my whole team knows if they want to find me, all they have to do is find Russ. Same thing with my husband. When we're on our Founders Club trips and all that, I tend to monopolize his time because I mean, it's invaluable, absolutely invaluable to me what I learned from him. He is, I consider him the best mentor I've ever had. And I just like everything that comes out of his mouth is like gold. And you really can't put a price tag on the things that the knowledge that he has and the things that he knows and he can teach. And so I got to talk to him last night for a while, and he was telling me about some things that he was learning at this conference that he's at. And so I asked him if he would come and share, because I can tell you what he told me, but I mean, why let me do it when the man himself can do it? So you guys make welcome our CEO, Russ Fletcher.
Well, thank you. You've told that story before about monopolizing my time, and it always makes me a little bit appreciative, but a little embarrassed. So I love the introduction. Thank you for that. I'm excited about some of this information. I just think it's good stuff. I'm at the DSA annual convention. CEOs and executives of all the direct selling companies are here. I went through a CEO roundtable. I got to spend some time with the other CEOs, and as I said on our Zoom last night, I listened to them, and they're facing some of the same issues that we're facing. But I wouldn't trade places with any of them, regardless of company size or prestige or anything like that. I love who we are and what we do. So that sets the tone for what this conference is, where I am. But some of the learning that I've taken away from this is very applicable, I think, to what we're doing with regard to what's an appropriate way to use social media. And actually, I was talking with Rudy Rivak last night, our chairman and founder of the company. And I was laying out for him some of the things that I learned. And he said, because he's not a big fan of social media, right? He's old school that way. He doesn't really use social media very much. And he listened to me talk about some of the lessons that I learned. And he said, well, that makes sense. That's the way to use it. That's good stuff. So that's why I thought, if you have the opportunity to talk to you and your team again today, let's do it. Let's talk about some of these things. So I'm going to dive right in, Melissa. If you have questions or you want to remind me some things we talked about last night to make sure that we all stay, get everything covered that we want to get covered.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start with just painting a picture. So social media is a vehicle, but it has to be used in the context of building relationships. If you use it as a vehicle to do everything for you, it's not going to serve you very well. But if you use it as a vehicle to build relationships, it can serve you very well. So let's start with that. So let me give you a scenario. Imagine you're backpacking through a forest. And as you backpack through the forest, you go through these very dense trees. And eventually you end up in this clearing, say basically the size of a baseball diamond. So you have a clearing, beautiful little meadow with trees on all sides of you. So this is the scenario that we're going to paint, and we're going to use this. We're going to come back to this a couple of times. Do you imagine, if you've just been through dense forest and now we're in this clearing, that there are animals maybe in the forest who can see you, but you can't see them? Almost for sure, right? I mean, there's got to be, depending on what kind of forest you're in, but there could be deer, there could be bears. I mean, there could be all kinds of animals out there. And at the risk of sounding a little offensive, imagine the animals are prospects, right? This is what we're talking about. I don't mean to equate people to animals, but you get the idea. So if they can see you, imagine this is social media. You don't necessarily know whether they're following you. They may not have clicked follow you. They may not have liked anything you've said. You may not be commenting, but they're out there and they're watching and they're trying to see what's going on. And so when you measure what you're saying against the idea that somebody's out there watching, it changes the perspective. So I have 7 things that I want to talk about with regard to this scenario. And then we're going to tie it back to some things that are specific to your businesses. So the first thing is you have to recognize just as there are probably different kinds of animals in those woods, there are different audiences. You need to know your audience. So number 1 is know your audience. It's okay to tailor different social media things to different groups of people. But when you're talking about who we're trying to reach out to, well, if you're trying to do one post or one Instagram story or one whatever fits all, yeah, you're asking to be misunderstood. And so you have to say, well, who am I trying to appeal with this information? Who am I trying to, which of the prospects or animals am I trying to attract? So number 1, know your audience. I'm trying to synthesize 3 different speakers into this one list of things here. And so one of the ways you get to know your audience is by making sure you understand context. One of the phrases that I loved was, content without context produces chaos. Content without context produces chaos. If you don't actually know where your audience, where they are, what appeals to them, what questions or problems they're trying to solve, and you just essentially throw up on them, you're giving them content without context. So that's number 1, know your audience. Number 2 is, so imagine you've now put out some content and one of the animals like sticks their head out from around a tree and you see them. And you're like, yay, come over here. I want to see you. I love you. Come be part of this. And you just run after them. What's going to happen to that animal? They're out of there, right? They're going to just take off. They're going to run away as fast as they can possibly get away. Not only that, as they're running away, they're warning all the other animals. This person's crazy. This happens to us all the time. We get in the situation where we are in this clearing and we've got somebody who's just kind of sticking their nose in saying, hi, what's going on? And we just bombard them with all kinds of information because we're so excited that somebody might be interested, but we scare them off simply by over communicating. So the number 2 is sell without selling. In other words, you're sharing information, but the goal of sharing the information is to try to get them to come into the clearing with you. You're trying to get them to join you in the clearing. You're not trying to get them to go do something else. You want them to join you in the clearing. And so if you sell without selling, that means the purpose of your communication is not to overshare. Hey, let me tell you about this. I love this. I'm with this great company and I love it. And it's a great community of people. And they have award-winning products and I lost all this weight and it's so terrific. And here's my before and becoming picture. And I made this much money because I love the compensation plan and I've met the greatest people in the world. And by the way, I'm taking a free trip. You should take a free trip. Don't you want to come with me? That's too much. The goal is you want to sell without selling, which means you're trying to create curiosity and intrigue. That's what you're trying to create. So when we say sell without selling, what we're talking about is putting out information that talks about outcomes, not incomes. Tell me about something that you got from your experience with Xyngular. Hey, I've lost weight. I'm fitting into this dress that I really wanted to get into. I'm wearing a swimsuit. Or I'm not more confident in wearing my swimsuit this summer than I was last summer. That's an outcome. And invariably somebody would say, wait for it. How'd you do that? That's the classic question, right? You want them to come to you and ask you the question instead of you just pushing it on them. Similar with our business stories. Hey, we just moved into our dream home. We've been planning this and building this for a long time. We just moved in. And let me show you a picture of my favorite room or the view from my favorite room or something about that. And then hopefully you're trying to get people to say, how'd you build your dream home in this economy? And now you can begin to answer questions. So you're trying to draw them into the clearing with you. And one of the other speakers said, you're trying to build a new story that they already believe. Trying to build a new story that they already believe. We're storytellers, right? So what you're trying to do is tell them a story about what's happening that builds on beliefs that they already have, which builds your credibility. So 1, know your audience. 2, sell without selling. 3, you need to work with the platforms. If you're using Facebook, or you're using Instagram, or you're using TikTok, even LinkedIn, you have to understand what the rules are of the platforms, because what's happening here is that the policies and procedures of the various platforms are being policed not by people, but by bots. So the bots are just, they're looking for things to say, oh yeah, this is something we don't want. And they're getting increasingly, it's getting increasingly harder to use these platforms to be very overtly selling. So back off of that. Sell without selling, share personal experiences. They still love that. But just recognize that there may be some platform-based rules that you don't necessarily understand, and make sure that you're trying to play nice with the platforms. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4. There's a phrase that got used for a number of years, which was, I need to build my own brand. I need to brand myself. And this gets a bad rap because people are thinking, well, you're branding yourself independent of the company that you work for. And so companies are like, well, don't brand yourself, brand your business. And don't, and what we're saying here is you're still branding yourself, but it's not like a business brand. It's your personal brand. You're trying to build yourself as someone who's credible. That's what branding yourself should mean. You're going to build yourself as a credible person, someone that they want to have a relationship with. Remember, the purpose of social media is to have a relationship, right? So you want to be telling stories about things that are true, that happened with you, and you want to make sure that you're building that relationship of trust. Remember, you're trying to draw them into the clearing with you, right? So that's number 4, and number 5 is very similar to that, is you have to be authentic. People can smell insincerity, they can smell disingenuity, they can smell that from a mile away. If you're not telling the truth, or you're being fake or over-exaggerating, and that we have great BS detectors in our world today. And people, especially on social media, people can look at that and go, yeah, but that isn't really true. So you have to be authentic. Now, as you're just getting started, perhaps you don't necessarily have the stories that you like to tell yet. Maybe you don't have an amazing business story. You don't yet have your great weight loss or wellness story. That's okay. You can use somebody else's story, but make sure you're telling it as their story. You're not trying to pass it off as yours. Hey, my good friend Melissa had blah, 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 her experience. And I'm excited to have my own experience that's similar to that, or some other form of building yourself up, your brand of someone who's worthy of trust. And then number 6 is build your foundational knowledge first and follow trends later. What do we mean by that? So many people get caught up in the latest and greatest, the shiny new object, the thing that everybody wants to go do. It was Facebook 10 years ago, and then it was Instagram, and then it was Snapchat, and then it was now it's probably Reels or some sort of video shorts. Maybe it's TikTok. Those are platforms and they're trends, and we should pay attention to those. But if you're chasing trends and the foundation isn't there first, that's solid, you're going to ask to not have as much success as you might otherwise have. What do I mean by foundations? Foundation of a relationship. And I'm going to back out of my 7 things for a minute. I want to talk about the concept of the conversation as the key element. Everything we do in life, everything we do is done through conversations, whether that's dialogue, right? Conversation is simply a dialogue between 2 or more people. Dialogue could be an actual verbal conversation, face-to-face or on Zoom. It could be a written conversation over text or some other form of written medium. But conversation is not I made a bunch of posts on Facebook, or I posted to my success chat group, or anything that's not two-sided isn't a conversation. It's a statement. And so all decisions are made through conversations. Unfortunately, most people view conversations as sometimes adversarial, you versus me, right? I'm going to try to convince you, you're going to try to convince me. We're almost at odds with one another. In order for this to work the way we want it to work, it needs to be not you versus me, but you and me against the world, or you and me against this problem that we both want to solve together. How do you do that? That's now building yourself, right? That's building your own, your credibility as somebody, as a person of trust. Well, how do I establish trust with somebody? It's a very interesting equation, and the equation is curiosity plus empathy equals trust. Let's take those apart. Curiosity. If I don't know anything about you and you don't know anything about me, we're going to have a hard time building a relationship of trust. You know, I don't know all the people who are on this Zoom as well as I know Melissa, but some of you know her better than you know me. So at the very least, you know that she trusts me. That's a starting point. But if we were going to truly have a relationship of trust, I would want to talk to you and ask questions. I would want to find out about you. I would want to know what your interests are. I would want to know what your experience in life is. Where you're coming from? Where are you wanting to go? What are the kinds of things that you're interested in? I would want to demonstrate sincere curiosity. The person who was talking about communication said, the person who asks the best questions controls the conversation. For years, I have said the quality of answers that we get is directly proportional to the quality of questions we ask. The better questions, the better we get at asking questions, the better the answers become. And the more we demonstrate that we're actually truly interested in this person. So curiosity, empathy. He gave the best definition of empathy I think I've ever heard. I really love this definition of empathy. Empathy is when you learn to care about the things the people you care about care about. Empathy is when you learn to care about the things that the people you care about care about. There's a lot of care abouts in there, but you get the idea, right? If you're in a situation where people don't think you really care, now you've become inauthentic again. Now that curiosity seems staged. Now you seem like you've got a list of questions you've been told to ask, and so you've asked them, and now you check that box. Now you're going to the empathy. Oh, what should I care about now? It's not a checklist. It's not a to-do item, right? It's sincere curiosity and sincere empathy. And then the third part of that triangle is courage. But not courage like run into a burning building courage. We're talking about courage to ask. Courage to now you've asked questions about them. Now you're asking questions about how you can help them. Remember, you're trying to tell them a story that they already believe, and now you're trying to walk them down the path of trying to take action. It's interesting because the speaker this morning, which was very interesting, she said, every action is something that resolves an argument in your head. So when somebody is finally willing to take action, it's because they've been debating something, they've come to a conclusion that they now know what to do, and then they go do it. Until you can inspire them enough to take action, they're still arguing in their head, right? So as you go through those 6 things, I want you to think about this. You're talking to their beliefs. You've understood them because you asked questions. You were curious. You've learned to care about the things that they care about. Honest empathy. You're now going to lay out a very simple equation again to draw them into the clearing with you. And the equation is very simply this. If you agree with belief number 1, and you agree with belief number 2, then you should be willing to take action that we're asking for. I have to lay that out for you, right? Let me just use a simple example. When the iPod, remember the iPod? When the iPod first came out, Steve Jobs said, I want to put 1,000 songs in your pocket. I'm going to put 1,000 songs in your pocket. Well, what are the 2 things he was trying to get you to agree to? One is, I have a music library that I love, 1,000 songs. 2 is, I want to take it with me. If you have 1,000 songs, you have a lot of music that you love, and you want to take it with you, buy an iPod. You see how that works? If I want to make sure that I've appealed to something that's already interesting to you. That all has to be back to authentic, real you, real relationship, right? Because you don't necessarily, it's not the same question for everybody. It's not a trick. It's not a formula. I mean, it is a formula, but it's not a one size fits all formula. It's back to, you have to be genuine and honest with them. Which now brings us to point number 7. So I'm going to give you the 6 again, and then I'm going to tell you what the 7th one is. 1, know your audience, make sure that your message is tailored to them. 2, sell without selling. Your goal from your communication is to spark curiosity and intrigue. You want them to come to you to join you in the clearing. 3, work with the platforms. Make sure that you're not running afoul of their rules and regulations. 4, build your brand, but that's a brand of credibility and trust. And it can build off the brand of Xyngular, but it can also build off that you're trying to build a relationship with them. 5, be authentic. You must be genuine. You must tell someone, make sure that you're telling your story. And if you're telling someone else's story, make sure that you're making that people know that. And 6, build on foundation, build foundation elements first and follow trends later. So that brings us to 7. You can't leave the clearing. You can't leave the clearing. You can't disappear for a while. You've got to be consistent at doing the first 6. If you leave the clearing, then even if they were intrigued at some point, they're not convinced you're going to be there necessarily. So you have to make sure that you're consistently there for them. You're available. Somebody said once, do you make your people work on vacation? You take them on these trips, do you make them work on vacation? I said, no, I don't make them work, but they often will continue to post things because they want people to know that they're still there. So that's number 7, consistency. Make sure that you're there in the clearing regularly so that when they want to come to you, when they're looking for you, they know where to come. Melissa, that's a whirlwind tour. What are some other things that you and I talked about that we should remember as part of this discussion?
Well, one of the things that was really profound to me was you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do everything alone. And you had talked about a 3-legged stool. And
right.
If one of the legs breaks, the stool's going to fall. But you want to talk about that and how you can aim to help you with the things that you're not as good at and just focus on the things that you are, but surround yourself with people to make you better.
I love that. Thank you for reminding me of that. So it's very easy to get into the mindset in this business that you're on this on your own, working out of your home, right? You're not going to an office. You don't have a boss that you're checking in with, and you're sort of, there's this sentiment that you could be going this alone. And I want to lay out for you the fact that there are actually 3 skills that you have to get good at to grow a business in this style of business at Xyngular. The 3 skills are attract, convert, and retain. And imagine this is a 3-legged stool, right? If you're only good at 1 or 2 of these, your stool will fall over. You need to be able to get good at all 3 of them. Well, that's hard. Getting good at all 3 of them, I mean, that could be daunting, but that's one of the keys here. Is this is a team business. This is a team business. Maybe you get really good at attracting people, and you can help members on your team by teaching them or working with them so they can attract people. Maybe somebody else on your team is better at converting them, or somebody else is better at retaining them. That's where the team comes from. So you don't have to really go this alone. If you're interested in building a business out of this, work with the team. Let the team help you with the areas where you perhaps are not as strong as others. It's so easy to get wrapped around there's so much to do and I can't do it all. That's probably true. So let's work together. Let's help each other. All this technology, all this social media, any of the other tools that we have available out in the world are just that. They're tools. I'm old enough to remember when the robocall was the big deal for network marketing, right? Where I could make a recording and hit a button and it would send it to my call list, and everybody would get a voicemail message from me saying, "Hi, this is Russ, and this is what I think about this week." That was an interesting tool. VHS tapes were a tool. I don't have to be good at this speaking thing. I'll just pop in a VHS and we'll have somebody who's super great speaker be good at this, and they'll teach them. None of that replaced what we're talking about. We're talking about these personal relationships. And so whether you're good at attracting, converting, or retaining, you're building a relationship with these people, and you're using your team to shore up the elements that you're perhaps not as good at. I think that's powerful. Is that where you wanted to go with that,
Yeah.
Melissa?
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that I told you last night that I struggle with, because I think I have to be good at everything instead of surrounding myself with people that can help me be better. And I think that that's one thing we've got to always look at is, there's, if you think you're the best in the room, then you need to go to another room, because there's always somebody that's going to make you better,
Yeah, one of the speakers was talking about how if you're not stretching yourself, like if you were in a sport and you're winning every match, well, then you need to play better people. And if you're in a situation where everything is easy, you need to challenge yourself a little bit more, because you're not actually achieving your full potential if everything comes easy. That's a hard thing, because people are like, I like this. This is easy. It's fun. But in this circumstance, we're taking it one step further, which is if something is not that easy for you, take your team to help shore up those elements that may not be as easy for you as you're learning how to do it. Years ago, I'll just tell a story from my past. Years ago, in my congregation, my Christian congregation, I was assigned to minister to a homeless woman. She stumbled into our congregation, and our pastor said, would you help her? And so my wife and I took on the assignment of trying to help this homeless woman get her life back together. And it was an incredibly humbling experience, because we sort of dove headfirst into the world of homelessness. You don't think about some of the challenges that these people have. For example, no ID. No ID. How does she get an apartment? She's not an official person because she has no government ID. In fact, she couldn't remember her social security number, or she couldn't even remember the city in which she was born for us to order a birth certificate for her. She'd been on the street that long. Long story short, we worked with her for a number of months. We finally were able to get her off the street and into an apartment. We got her a job working for a woman also in the congregation. And I remember talking to the pastor one day, and he was asking how it was going. And I explained it to him, and he smiled and he said, that's the way God's work is supposed to go. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, I can't do that. I would never have had the time to put all this time and legwork into helping this woman get into an apartment. I mean, yeah, I'm the pastor of this congregation, but I need people like you and your wife to step up and have the same caring and love that I would have, because that's what we're doing here. And you have become my hands and legs, and I was the eyes. I saw her. You reached out and you helped her, and then the rest of the congregation became, the family that hugged her and brought her in. That's a little bit about what we're talking about here. We're talking about somebody's the eyes, somebody's the arms and legs, and that's attract, convert, retain. Now that attract, convert, retain, that's so cold. That just sounds like very business speak. When we're talking about people, think about what are you good at? Which of those things do you excel at? Sometimes I fear that we say, well, if you're not good at the attract part, you're not going to be good at this. Not necessarily true. Maybe they're good at the convert and retain part. Let's help them with the attract part. Where else did we go last night? I've got pages and pages.
A lot of
here.
things, but just is one of the things that you had said was, across the board, people are going up and down, and it happens in business, and that's just standard. It doesn't matter if it's in network marketing or other businesses, but you just got to ride it out. You've got to trust the process. You want to talk on that a second?
Yeah, one of my favorite phrases is a phrase that I used years ago called "trust the soup." The business world is a multivariable calculus, right? It's not just even multivariable algebra. It's multivariable calculus. Think about it like the weather. The weather has so many variables, it takes a supercomputer to predict, and they're still only right a fraction of the time, right? Business is kind of like that. There's multiple variables, and you can't put your finger on one and say, I'm going to control that one, and these others are still going. Because of that, businesses have cycles. The economy surges or it ebbs. The interest in a certain type of product surges or it ebbs. The excitement over an opportunity surges or it ebbs. That's just the way business goes. So one of the things you have to be able to do is to have the patience to recognize that this too shall pass. The super high highs that sometimes we experience are probably not real. The super decline that sometimes we experience, probably not real either. There's a reason why it's called regression to the mean, which means that things tend to go back to the center. And the question you should be asking is the center moving forward or is it moving backward? And our center is moving forward. So while sometimes people will say to me, well, my business is down, maybe I'm not cut out for this, my message is always the same, and it was reinforced at this convention. Write it out. Write it out. You're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. We're going to help each other. How would you like to be the last person who quit before the surge? Our business surged in a way that was unprecedented in the spring of 2020. And we had a significant leader, someone who had already achieved the rank of gold executive, resigned from the company in March of 2020. 1 month before a huge surge in our business, and she said, I'd rather do something else. She missed out. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I'm so excited. I'm so excited about where we are and where things are going. I think these messages were very timely. Here's another example. If I tell you, describe to me a stereotypical salesman, right? If I said, just tell me what are some words that come to mind for a stereotypical salesman? Melissa, what are some words that come to mind?
Aggressive.
Aggressive, yeah. What?
There's kids yelling in the background, but like cold, insensitive.
Cold, insensitive, right? Pushy.
Pushy. Uh-huh.
I mean, if you go too far, people will say things like dishonest.
Yep.
Sometimes you even get the word sleazy.
Yep.
Right? Stereotypical. Now I'm going to change one word in this discussion. From stereotypical salesman, now I want you to talk about what words come to mind when we talk about professional salesmen.
Informative.
Okay.
Understanding. Relational.
Right? Trying to solve problems with you instead of just pushing something on you.
Yep.
Now, the difference is just the one word. Stereotypical salesman versus professional salesman. Words matter. how we describe what we do matters. It changes the way people think about this. Sometimes people say to me, you're in this network marketing company or this multi-level marketing company or some other term like that. And that's true. I don't try to make some representation, but when I tell people what I am, I'm in a direct to consumer business with a multi-tiered compensation plan. That's it. Because I want them to understand, I want them to divorce what we do from this concept of whatever they think about when they think about multi-level marketing or network marketing or things like that. I'm in a direct-to-consumer sales business with a multi-tiered commission program. Do you know what else has a direct-to-consumer sales business with a multi-tiered commission program? Life insurance companies, financial advisors, law firms, car dealerships, and on and on and on. There's a whole series of them. Do people look at that and go, well, that's not, no. They don't think of them in the same context. So we're trying to get to the point where people understand we can change their lives. I wish you all could have been here for these few days. It's very interesting because there's a lot of talk about what's happening with the internet and is the affiliate model going to take over from what we do? And I don't think the answer to that is yes, by the way. I don't think that anything is going to really replace the relationship that you're going to have with somebody when you're going to say to them, look, this is something that I've experienced. This is something that's true. Let me tell you, we have a relationship of trust. Come into the clearing with me. Let me share this with you. So, quick recap, what you're after is you're in this clearing, you're after trying to draw people to you. You're not really trying to chase them because you'll chase them away. Trying to give them a story that they already believe. How do you do that? We have to build on the beliefs that they already have. Change is the business that we're in. Change is built on stories, and stories are built on beliefs. Go through that again. Change is the business we're in. Give us 8 days, we'll change your life. Change is what we do. Change is built on stories where somebody's going to say to you, hey, this is my story. And they're going to choose to change or not based on whether they believe you. So you have to drive the beliefs through everything. Social media is just one way to do that. There's a great expression. I don't remember who said it first, but the expression is, what you do rings so loudly in my ears that I can't hear what you say. So that's the authenticity. That's where you still have to be the real person. So there's our 7 steps. If you have this, if you agree with this and you agree with this, and you want to do something like this, and 1,000 songs in your pocket by an iPod. And as you're walking through this, for example, one of the beliefs that we have with Xyngular is nearly everyone in the country could use a little bit more money in their pocket. Well, if you believe that you'd like a little bit more money in your pocket, you'd like to do it in the spare time you have in your life, you should consider something like Xyngular. That's a very crude one, but you get the idea. We're after buy-in. We're after people resolving the conflict that they have in their head. Well, how do you know what it is? You got to ask questions. You got to be curious. You got to have empathy. And then when you're ready, you say to them, well, what's going to stop you from coming and joining us? Hopefully nothing. Anything else I can add?
No, I mean, that's fantastic. I feel the momentum. I feel the excitement building back up. And it all starts at the top. I'm so thankful that y'all created a foundation that has that one team, one dream where, we all work together. It doesn't matter if it's cross line, sister line. And I think that that's something so unique about this company. And I'm just so thankful to be a part of it.
Oh, you and me both. I sat and again, I listened to these CEOs over the last 2 days, and I'm listening to some of their problems, and I'm going, Yeah, no, I'm not interested in trading with you. You may be interested in trading with me, but I'm not necessarily going anywhere. So
Thank you so much for taking your time, and safe travels back home. Enjoy the rest of your conference, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
here we go.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope this
Russ.
is valuable.
Final words.
So to tell you another story, years ago, I was privy to being able to travel around with a master teacher. And he was doing some training, and I was sort of his chauffeur. And we were going to various installations, and he was training there. And as we got back to our hotel after the last stop, we were having dinner, and he said, "Do you know why I wanted you to come with me?" And I said, "No. Why did you want me to come with you?" And he said, "Because you're the trainer now. I've done this training. It's now time for you to take what you watched me do over these last 7 visits and now go train everybody else in what you see me do." And I, hemmed and hawed a little bit. And he said, "That's why I do this. I'm going to go take somebody else in another region. I'm going to take them and I'm going to train them. But I'm not coming back. This is your job now." And so that model of learn from a master and then go train yourself and then train someone else to do it. That's the old see one, do one, teach one, right? And that's what we do. As you become a master teacher in your own organization, you'll train other people. You will have seen master teachers train you. You will train someone else, and they will train someone else. And that's the genius of our business model.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Russ. You have a great day.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.